Welcome to a little tutorial about creating a Laravel project using Cloud9 online editor. Now in this video I will show you how to create the workspace and simply add the Laravel project on it so you can start working on it, and I will show you how to use the authentication method that it comes with Laravel. So let's get started. First of all, just make sure you're logged in C9, and then just create a workspace here based on PHP. Now you can set whatever project name you want here. For instance, I'll be using PHP. Now you can add a simple description, but it's not necessary. Then in my case it will be a public repository, and now we can start creating the workspace. Now this might take a little, but it's really quick and you can start working on it like just a minute after. So let's just wait till it completes. Alright, you should see something like this. I changed the color of the application. You can change the theme in the configuration here in the themes, but let's get ahead. Now this is our application, and as you can see there's a PHP file over here. You can try running the project and you will see that patch start running and creates a URL for you. Now you can press on this URL to visit it. In my case I will just get it and put it on a new tab. Now this is our application. As you can see, PHP works pretty good at the moment, so let's just get here. Alright, now the first thing we have to do is simply open a terminal. That in most cases you already got it opened, so I will stop the project now. No, I don't know if this will stop. Alright. The first thing you have to do now is simply go to Laravel website and copy the composer create project code. You don't really need to install using the Laravel installer, and you can simply do it this way. So let's get ahead, simply paste it here, and in my case I will be using a custom name like project. You can use whatever name you want here. Now simply press enter and it should automatically start installing the application. Now you will see a folder created here. This is where your project will be. You can install the project on another folder, but automatically it's the first folder you got in the terminal. It's workspace, so you can actually change it to your home directory if you want to, but in this tutorial I'll be using this, so there's no problem. Now let's wait a bit until it completes. Meanwhile, we can check that our application is currently working because the project is created in this folder. We can actually check out that I got all the Laravel installation files here. Alright, it seems now that it's generating the application key. As you can see here, that's actually the key used to generate encryption stuff. So now after the application key has been set, you can start working on your project. So the first thing we have to do is simply move to the project folder. In my case, you can just move you to the Laravel project, and if we list the content, it should actually be the same as here. Now I can list it better here. Alright, as you can see, there's a file here named artisan. Now this file is what controls Laravel commands. So in our case, we can use this as PHP artisan and then simply the command we want to run. So the first thing we gotta be running is the migration. So let's get ahead and start PHP artisan migrate. That will only work if the database setting has been set. So as you can see, if I try to run this command, it should say access denied. Now that's okay, because you first have to set up database configuration. So let's get ahead. There's a file into the Laravel project called .env. Now this file contains all the configurations for our application. Alright, now the next thing we have to actually build is the MySQL server. By the way, the MySQL server is already running, so we should reinstall it. You can go into Google and look for MySQL Cloud9, and you should see a documentation here where it shows you how to run and all the stuff you have to type and everything here. Now in our case, we are not going to use this because let me check. I actually think that there's a better way to set up a database into the workspace. Alright, this one. We should install the MySQL server. Auth is already installed. This will give us an idea of what to type into the Laravel project. So simply press on it and it will ask you if you want to reinstall it. So I will press yes and it will reinstall it. And after the install has been complete, it should say the credentials here. Now the credentials should be your root user is the same as the username you got. It's normally displayed here. Now this is database username. Now the password is empty by default, and then the database name is C9. You can create more database later, I guess. And the host is localhost, as we are connecting using the same host. So let's get ahead. Now we can save it and we can type the following command again: php artisan migrate, and that will actually migrate all the stuff into our application. Alright, now the following thing will be start by checking that if our application is currently working. So simply go to the website and try to go to public folder. Now if you see Laravel 5, it means that everything is complete and working fine. Now for the next thing, let's go to our roots application, which is inside the app HTTP and roots. Now this is the roots of our application. So the first thing we have to set up simply the auth roots within the application. So I will manually add a user to the database. You can do it by just creating a root, for instance. Get and add. This will add our first user to the database. We'll use the main controller, right? So inside the controllers you will see different files here. Now we should create a controller before going on. Now this is done by using the php artisan command. Simply type make controller and the name, in my case main controller. I will type enter and it should update. If it doesn't, simply refresh the file tree. Now this is the file we want to be working with. There's a function already created called create, so let's go ahead and say that it executes the main controller with the function create. Alright. Now we should type here the code for inserting the user to the database. The user variable is going to be the one we're going to be using. So first of all, let's simply use the hash for hashing the password and use the app user model. Now it's this file over here. Alright, so simply set that the variable user equals to a new user. Now the user name it's gonna be type your name or whatever you want here. The user email, it's going to be whatever. You can actually type whatever you want here again. So for instance this. Now the user password, that's going to be different because the password needs to be hashed before anything happens. So first thing we have to do here, simply hash the password. As you can see, we already imported the hash library class into our application. So simply call it by using hash and then make and password here. So you can like try pass, for instance. That will be my password, or we can say password. Alright, now that we got everything we need for our user, we can save it. So user save. This will save the user into our database. And as you can see, we can check here on the terminal if anything is inside the application. So simply run MySQL CLY, I think. I'm not actually sure if it was like this. No, it wasn't. Hold on a second. CLT. Yeah, I guess. And then it wasn't the other documentation stuff. Alright, so simply type MySQL /ctl space CLY. So in case this works, you should see the MySQL information regarding to the version and everything you need to know. Now this will be the MySQL prompt command. So you can start by typing use and the database, which in my case is C9, and it should say database changed. Now you can, for instance, select all from users. Now you should see, you should see an empty set here because nothing is already added into the user table. Now you can check out that nothing's here. Now for instance, if we run this function, it will add the user to the users field, and you should see it here. Now let's try it out. Simply go here /add, and it should already have added the user to the database. Now simply run the command again, and you should see your user here. As you can see, the name is here, the email is here, the password is already hashed, and the other information is not relevant here. Now as this is working fine, we can go ahead and try to make a login form. But before anything happens, if anybody is comfortable using PHP MyAdmin, for instance, instead of using the MySQL command prompt, you can check out on Google, for instance, PHP MyAdmin Cloud9, and you should see the documentation here as well. That's a way to do it, but I like documentation instead. As you can see, there's you need to have MySQL installed, so we already did this before. Now we need to install PHP MyAdmin. So let's go here and simply type it into the terminal, and you should see that the patch has been restarted and the PHP MyAdmin has been completely installed. Now you can see that if you go, I will open a new tab here. If you go to your application /PHP MyAdmin, it should open the PHP MyAdmin page. Your username is told here. You can copy it, paste it here, and remember there's no password, so you can log in here. Now I do not recommend changing the password here because it will change the way MySQL starts. But if you wish to, you can go to users and change your password here. Now let's go to database. We see the C9 database here, and we can see all the migrations from the Laravel project. You can see the users table here, and we can see the user here, so we can work on it into the website without using any commands. Now let's go ahead and simply start the login stuff and the register stuff as well. So let's go. First thing, we have to go into the authentication documentation on Laravel 5. Now you will see routing stuff. It will tell you some routes, so you can simply copy them here. Let's go to root folder. We can already delete this one. It was just a test route. And we'll delete this function as well. Alright. Now this will be the routes for our application in case we want to log in and everything. So let's go ahead. Now we should add the views into the application. Now here's a little form generated in simple HTML. So we will just copy this in this test. Right. Now let's go into the views, resources, views, and we should create a folder here. Now this folder will be Auth, and inside the Auth folder we will create a new file. Let's call it login.blade.php. Now this file will contain all the login information. In this case we can just use the one from Laravel. So let's go ahead. I don't know if duplicate, yeah. We can rename it to register.blade.php, and the register form will be this one. Now this is the login to register. See. Now that we got both files, we should not do anything else now. So let's simply try and go into the public Auth login. So we should see a form here. If anything is typed in here, I will probably redirect to the wrong site because the project is not in the main root of the application. So the way to fix it, simply go into the login form, and where it says the action, I will just remove it. So you can actually change it to the one you want to, but in my case I will just use the same. So let's delete it. And let's go again. If we log in, nothing will happen. That's because we do not handle any errors here. And actually there is a variable for the errors, but we are not using it now, so we cannot display anything here. Now as this is a simple tutorial, I will be not using it, so let's go ahead and try to type our email here. Try to type our password. Now before logging in, I will just create a simple route that would be called home. Now this is the default route when the user logs in, gets redirected to. You can simply use a function and you can return redirects to the login page like this or something, but in my case I'll just use this as a route instead of creating anything here. So I will point it to the main controller, and the function will be, for instance, home. Now simply go to the main controller and create a function, public function home. Now the main controller will actually handle all the application stuff, so maybe instead of using the main controller, which is currently empty, I know, this should handle all the front-end website, I mean the visitors, what they see and everything happens. Now when a user logs in, I preferably use a new controller. So let's create a new controller by typing php artisan make controller, and for instance I would panel controller. Now this will create a controller here. We can refresh again. The panel controller is located here. Now we can actually create a function here called construct. Now this function will handle everything that happens into this controller before any function is executed. So let's use this middleware Auth. Now anything that happens into this controller will require the user to be logged in, so you can check it out. For instance, this should echo welcome home. Now if the user successfully goes to the index function into the panel controller, it should look this message. So let's go ahead and point it to the index. Alright, now let's try it out by going into the home directory, and as you can see, nothing happens. Now that's because maybe the function is not set correctly. What if I remove this line? Let me check. I know what happens, probably. That's because in the roots I forgot to change the main controller into the panel controller, sorry. Now, as you can see, it should redirect to the login page because the user is not logged in. So, as you can see, the redirection is made correct. And you have not even touched anything that's made by the authentication Laravel stuff. So, simply, let's try and log in now with our username stuff, and it should say welcome home. Now as you can see, everything works fine now. So what if we want to access the current logged in user? It's very simple. Simply go to, for instance, our welcome home, and we will use space here, and you can use the Auth. I'll put a space here. Auth user. And that's and you can for instance echo the name. Now for this we have to use the Auth, and let's go on and try it. So as you can see, it's my name here. You can for instance get the email of the user, so it works really well. Now if you want to change the middleware of the main controller into only the users who are guests and are not logged in, you can change this to a guest. It will act the other way. So that's pretty much everything we need to know about this right now. So that's it for the first tutorial about C9 and authentication inside Laravel. So I hope you liked it.